Well, Ian, let's switch to the film side because I think the goal is to have the integrations look seamless and organic. But how long do you begin planning? At what point do you start figuring out which brands you're going to include, and what is that process like?
Well, it's usually fairly early on, I would say, for whatever your format is, your platform, you start early. So you get a script, and certainly on the Transformers films, where we don't make any bones about the fact they're very commercial films, and there are plenty of opportunities in there for exposure, and we've been able to do some great exposure with GM and Chevrolet and a lot of other brands that have been offsets, if you will, fiscally to the budgets, which we're sort of unusual because a lot of studios won't let you do that. I'm not sure what it's like at the networks, but we've had enough success with that franchise where we're allowed to take some credits for the branding exposures, provided they stay in the movie. So for us, it starts really early on. At the very beginning of number one, obviously, the relationship that was spawned with GM and Chevrolet became probably one of the classic cases of a branding partnership between a company and a motion picture. So obviously there's lots to talk about, that we don't need to in Transformers, but I think that's a fantastic example of a relationship that worked for both sides in a massive way.
So you said that your studio, Paramount, sort of encouraged that. So talk a little.
No, we encouraged them.
Okay. My
No,
bad.
that was, look, Michael has a long relationship that pre-existed Transformers with General Motors and Chevrolet, so it was somewhat natural. I mean, look, in the beginning of the Transformers history, Bumblebee was not a Camaro. Bumblebee was a VW. So, it was Mike's idea actually to change it, and he had enough clout that he could say, no, we're gonna use a Chevrolet. So that's where that actually started. So that was literally like day one of the franchise.
And I think that's the really interesting thing from a standpoint of at what time in the process does that conversation happen? Because a writer in their writer's room is used to working with real brands. In today's world, if somebody, and we were talking about this earlier, if somebody is going online and they're going to a dating service, they're probably going to write in eHarmony or Match.com or something that they know. It would be, in our judgment, kind of strange to go to the art department and say, let's mock up, some new name and create that, because it's not going to sit well with the consumer who's watching the property. So we start from the perspective of the writer's room and then the showrunners and producers as, sort of a bottom-up approach of that if the writers can really be very comfortable with the brands, they're getting in a car or they're picking up a can of beverage. It can be milk, it could be iced tea, it could be a whole bunch of things. It's what's right for the character.
And is there any sort of limit as to, obviously Transformers is very commercial and you have some good integrations in there, but do you ever, because I would imagine that you have to beat people off with a stick too, because everyone wants to be in the film. So how do you approach what brands to get into the film and which ones to say, thank you very much?
Well, I think that goes eventually back to material and content, right? The story comes first, right? So everything that we do, or hopefully we try to do, is in service of the story and the visuals and making some kind of a spectacle in the case of Transformers, that kids of all ages, enjoy going to see. So at the beginning, you have a script, and then we have, a couple of, partners that we, usually work with that help us, look at the script and say, in this scene, have you thought about this? And, then, Mike and I, will go through it ourselves, and we have a placement coordinator that we work with a lot. And so you come up with a core set of ideas, and then you start putting values to them, and it's all got to be balanced, right? You got to go, well, we've already got Chevrolet, so you can't do anything else fiscally, with the car company necessarily, but you can have other cars because it's a car movie, right? So you've got to have other stuff in there. And and all those car companies need to be able to to understand what their relationship is with one another. They all have to know that Chevrolet has primary marketing rights, right? So it gets very complex, because the other car companies are not like they're not newbies, right? And so if they want to put their car in the movie as well, they are looking for certain rights, but because GM was first in the door and we're featuring for the most part a Chevrolet, they get to go first, right? So all of that has to be managed and balanced and discussed not only with, with the vendor and the supplier, but also with the studio in terms of its marketing campaigns and what you can and can't do in marketing. So it's a very, very complicated piece of our puzzle, especially on those larger projects.
And Lou, how do you handle your integrations, and what level of approval does Showtime have? And are they encouraging you to get more products in, or is that something you're
Yeah.
bringing to the table?
Well, but they encourage it. I mean, I encourage them more than they encourage me, because it gives, in television, it doesn't, we get a little bit less money than you do in a big movie, but it still affects our budget. And what we do is we get offered, they'll bring us different brands, different products, liquor products, beer products, and we'll try to figure out which one fits for the season, because we need to get a certain amount of placements over the course of 12 episodes, as opposed to one feature. And so we just have to figure out what we can manage, what we can accomplish and make them happy, but also get what we need. And it goes from beer to liquor to Dyson to, it's a million different things that are brought to us. And so we take it on an episode by episode basis. But with Showtime, at least in the shows that I'm working on, a lot of this money goes directly into the episodes or into the show. So other networks, and they make a product placement deal, benefits the studio. And I've had showrunners say, "Listen, if I'm not getting the money for the show,
going in."
I'm not putting it in. I'm not putting it in the show."
absolutely.
And so now I got to convince them, because we need it. And so they wind up. We're talking. I mean, they're not. It's not millions of dollars, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's a significant thing, especially if at the end of the season it's offsetting overages that you might have. And I don't look at it as it's a little bit different. I don't look at it, on a big movie, you're taking a line item to help you offset the overall budget, if you can do that. I take it as found money and use it at the end of the season to enhance the
Yeah, you
project.
enhance what you're doing.
To hire a bigger actor, to spend more money on music, to get the Rolling Stones, to get Elton John. And that's sort of how we do it, and we don't count on it to pay for the show. We just let it enhance the show.
Can I add a quick note?
Sure, of course.
Because you've heard Lou and I both say the same thing, and so for you producers out there, especially younger ones that are, starting out, what we both said is that we take it to the studio or the network. They don't bring it to us, right? They're not really paying attention to that. It's not their job, frankly. That's what producers do. So if you have a filmmaking team that is open to the exploration of this part of our business, that's up to you. Right, so you can create meaningful relationships and collaborations and partnerships here that the studio will, no disrespect to them, they'll be asleep on this because it's not really their job, it's our job. And so I would encourage everybody to keep this centrally focused.